All right, guys, today we're going to talk a little bit about figurative language. So, literal versus figurative language. So if something is literal, you are saying exactly what you mean. You're not making a comparison, you're not exaggerating or understating the situation. It's what you mean. I am going to the store. Then you have figurative language, as you don't say exactly what you mean. You do compare, you exaggerate, you underestimate, you use similes, metaphors, hyperboles, and other figures of speech to make your writing more exciting. For example, I might say, I'm going to run to the store. Obviously, that probably means I'm going to get in my car and go there, not actually run, so that would be more figurative language. So let's take a look. Grant always turns in his homework. That would be an example of literal language. The water was rising in the river because of the rain. Another example of literal language. The sentence says what it means. His teeth are like stars because they come out at night. Her teeth. Obviously, that's figurative language. It's comparing teeth to stars. Then we have when she sings, her voice is like velvet. That's another example of figurative language because it is comparing someone's voice to velvet. Half of the class did not complete the assignment. That would be literal. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Well, that's a hyperbole, an exaggeration. You really couldn't eat a whole horse, hopefully not any of a horse. So that would be an example of figurative language. Mike was so angry that steam was coming out of his ears. Obviously, that is not what would really happen if you were angry, but so that would be figurative language. The zebra cried when the wise old elephant died. That would also be figurative language, giving non-human creatures or things human characteristics. And I've told you 1,000,000 times to clean up your room. That would also be figurative. Even though your mom probably told you that a lot, she probably hasn't quite said it 1,000,000 times in one day. So there are 7 types of figurative language that you're going to see the most often. There's simile, hyperbole, alliteration, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, oxymoron. So you can see this makes up the acronym shampoo. So that's an easy way to remember that. Acronym. Can't talk. So first we have our simile, and this is comparing 2 unlike things using the words like or as. Her eyes were like stars. Susan is as gentle as a kitten. Those are both great examples of a simile. Then we have a hyperbole, and a hyperbole is an exaggeration that's so dramatic no one could believe it. It's an overstatement to emphasize a point. This bag weighs a ton. Or, I've told you 1,000,000 times to clean up your room. Then we have alliteration. So alliteration is the repeating of the same letter or sound, especially consonants, mostly consonant sounds, at the beginning of a word. You think of these, you'll think of tongue twisters, right? Miss Warren was worried when Wendy was waiting. You have that W sound repeated over and over again. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. You have the B sound repeated over and over again. Peter Piper picked the peck of pickled peppers. That's a tongue twister, and it's also an example of alliteration. You see alliteration a lot in poetry. A flea and a fly and a flew were in prison, so they could do, said the fly, what could they do? Said the fly, let us flee, let us fly, said the flea. So they flew through a flaw in the flue. And you can see that is a lot of alliteration. So then we have metaphor. And this is also comparing 2 unlike things, but this time you do not use like or as. It's when you call one thing something else. For example, he's a lion when he fights. So you're comparing him to a lion, but you're not saying like or as. You're just saying he is that thing. Or her eyes were sparkling emeralds. That's a metaphor. Or my love is a red, red rose. So then we have personification, and this is when you give human characteristics to things that are not human. The angry floodwaters slapped the house, so giving the floodwaters the characteristic of being angry. Or the sun smiled down on us. Then we have onomatopoeia. That's a fun one to say, not always a fun one to spell. All right, this is the use of a word to describe or imitate a natural sound made by an object or action. They're words that sound like what they mean. So, for example, buzz, like a bee or a fly, or pow, or tweet, tweet, or zoom, zoom. Yeah, all of these would be examples of onomatopoeia. All right, and then we have our last O, oxymoron. And these are words or phrases in which contradictory or opposite terms are used together, like jumbo shrimp, act naturally, adult child, climb down, yeah, or baby grand, referring to a piano. So don't forget to shampoo. Those will help. That acronym will help you remember the 7 common uses of figurative language.